Hey everybody, welcome to the third talk from Hashnode Bootcamp Season 3. This season's bootcamp focuses on building an effective personal brand as a developer. We have a lot of amazing speakers from whom you can learn a lot. We are really excited to host this edition and learn from these professionals, knowledgeables, and amazing speakers. Please let us know in the chat if you are happy to hear from them as well. We will kick it off by giving it over to Edidiong to talk a bit.
Amazing, thank you. Hi everyone, welcome to today's session. My name is Edidiong Asikpo. I work as a developer advocate at Hashnode. I love to write technical articles, build developer communities, and share content on my blog. With me here is my amazing colleague Catalin, who also works in the developer advocacy team at Hashnode. He loves sharing insightful articles on his blog and YouTube channel, and in spare time, he loves to write quotes and play video games. In case you don't already know, Hashnode is a free blogging platform for developers that lets you create a blog in under 2 minutes. Aside from that, you can map this blog to your custom domain, get access to readership through our dev community, customize your blog, have a free newsletter, and so much more. The list goes on and on. So if you're not using Hashnode already, feel free to go to hashnode.com, check it out, look at the features, and use it as well. And if you're not using it consistently, trust me, writing technical articles and blogging definitely helps your career a lot. So feel free to try to improve on that for a bit. At the end of this session, we're going to be answering questions. So if you have any questions for Colby, click on the questions tab at the bottom left corner of your screen and type in your question. And we're going to ask those questions at the end of the session. And also feel free to share your learnings on Twitter or any social media platform of your choice using the hashtag Hashnode Bootcamp. All right, so I'll call Catalin to go ahead and introduce.
Yep, for this bootcamp, we have 6 speakers, which means 6 talks over 14 days. And you learn about how to build an effective personal brand as a developer. So far, we had Sam Julian, Alice Spittle, and today we have Colby Fayock. And please, if I don't pronounce your name correctly, please let my pronunciation is not that good.
You did a good job.
Okay, Colby is a DevRel and astrocoder at Applitools. He's also a tech educator teaching JavaScript, UX, React, and the static web. Colby shares knowledge on his blog, on his newsletter, and YouTube channel. I highly recommend his following his online spaces because he shares a lot of great content, and personally, I enjoy it a lot. Without further ado, let's welcome Colby onto the stage, and please let him know in the chat how happy you are to listen to him. From here, it's up to you.
Hey, how's everyone? And yeah, my shirt looks a little bit 3D, but should I go ahead and start with the talk then? Yep. Cool. Well, hey, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about how you can stand out by... Hey, Catalin, should I go ahead? Yeah.
Sorry, Colby. Like I said before, AirMeet is not going properly today. Yeah, okay. Please go ahead and we'll listen to you.
Sounds great. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Well, hey, everybody. Let's talk about how you can stand out by building a personal brand. Let me first share my screen. That would be helpful. Here we go. Cool. All right. So who am I? I'm Colby Fayock, as they kind of introduced me. Thank you for that. I'm the one hugging BB-8 and Kylo Ren over there. I work with the dev community as a developer advocate for Applitools. You can find me pretty much anywhere on the web by just Googling my name, as I'm the only one in the world. So first, let's address the idea of what a personal brand is. I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels a little bit icky when hearing that. Hopefully, I'm not the only one who watches 90 Day Fiancé to actually get this reference, but the idea of a personal brand can sometimes have a little bit of a negative connotation to it. People can think maybe you're selling out or being fake to get attention. So let's just start off by saying that's absolutely not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to talk about how you can start building your personal brand and it can help you stand out. This can range from anything, and it's not just becoming a social media star. It can help you find a job, or it can help you find some speaking gigs, or even simply it can help you build your network. Before we get any further, let's take a little step back, and I want to reflect on that icky part. Let's talk about what I don't mean by a personal brand. If you didn't get the 90 Day Fiancé reference, maybe you'll get this. Who here is a Community fan? Well, if you haven't seen it, Subway hired a guy to change his name to Subway. He was an actor who represented Subway, went to school at Greendale on the show. E-Fresh. Anyways, the goal of a personal brand isn't to turn it into some mega brand actor. Your personal brand should speak to who you are. Your brand should be your personality. People can spot someone who's fake pretty easily. And even if you're sly, it always ends up catching up with you. This also comes with job hunting. When they start talking to you and realize that you're not the same personality as you are on Twitter, are they going to respond positively? It's also not about creating a meme account that will get you a bunch of followers. While this might get some laughs and can be fun, and yeah, maybe you'll get a bunch of followers, it might end up doing more harm than good. It could build a reputation that some companies just might not want to deal with. It also doesn't really show why you're a good candidate. Maybe save some of those spicy memes for a separate Twitter account. And while selling a bunch of stuff with your logo is a lot of fun, that's not really the point of all this. And sure, you can go and commission someone for some kind of space jellyfish. You can even give them a fun name like Cosmo. But if you have fun doing it, of course, go for it. But it can be a distraction from the important parts of your brand that actually can make a difference. And again, all those things are completely fine, but those strategies can be hit or miss. Maybe you'll get rich with a swag store. Or maybe you'll end up like me back in high school with a bunch of t-shirts I just couldn't sell. But let's actually talk about what a meaningful personal brand is made of. Here we have a few different shots of speakers from a list from different conferences. You might have seen some of these people before. If you have, and chances are you have, we can immediately recognize some of our favorite speakers by just kind of skimming through. And if not, even just looking between the two, it's kind of easy to pick out some patterns, right? We can immediately recognize some of our favorite speakers. Like here, we can pick out Kent Dodds. Or here, we can quickly find Angie. Her nice orange background pops right off the page. It's the first thing you see. And especially if you've seen that before, your eye is drawn right to it. And the same goes for really anyone here, Maggie or Swix. The pattern, though, is it's important to use the same photo, or roughly the same photo, for your online presence. When people see that image over and over again, they'll be able to easily point you out in a larger group of others. Just like some big company plastering their logo all over the place. By keeping consistent imagery, you're building that same kind of brand recognition. But it's not just images. You also have to have consistent messaging for who you are. Or if you're helping others, how are you helping them? If you're people talking about learning in public on Twitter, chances are it's because Swix has popularized the idea lately. He's given a lot of talks about this and has written a lot of blog posts about it too. The idea is, as you're learning, working, or discovering new things, talk about those things in public. That can be anything, like writing blog posts like here on Hashnode, or giving talks, simply asking questions on social media, or posting your code on GitHub. As you talk about your work, it can help you learn those concepts and also give you an opportunity to learn from others. All of that advocacy of learning in public led him to write an entire book. He doesn't just cover learning in public, though. He covers a wide range of developers' journeys. But now, when people think about learning in public, it's often associated with him and his personal brand. Side note, concept is very, very relevant to this talk and this bootcamp, so I definitely recommend checking out his blog. But it's also important to have a consistent voice. And no, I don't mean what you sound like. It's referring to how you bring your personality and your brand into your work. While ThinkGeek.com was, or kind of still is, a brand, fans of theirs grew to love their geeky voice. They were amazing at taking typically dry page copy or product photos and turn it into something fun that even the most hardened DM would smile at. The team was made up of people who are also geeks at heart, and that personality showed, helping relate to fans. Again, while this is a brand, it still shows that a big difference can make when it shows to help your story and your personality. I think ThinkGeek is a good example because of how strong the voice is. It shows how a strong voice is relatable and shows personality. But the same exact concept applies to people as well. Maggie Appleton has become well known for her ability to explain technology. She does so through explaining different concepts through metaphors. While she didn't come up with the idea of a digital garden herself, she's done a lot of writing on the topic, which is in itself a metaphor, with the idea that your notes can start from little seedlings. And as you develop those ideas, they can start to build and bud and become evergreen pieces of content. That's a little bit of a simplification, so I recommend checking out her work, but it's an easier way to explain and mentally organize notes and content. And this goes for both words and visual metaphors. She broke tech Twitter by comparing React to potato. And it kind of makes sense, right? But being able to relate concepts to real life things can help others form a deeper understanding. She's known for that now, for that type of work, and people often seek her out for that kind of thing to talk about. So you might have noticed a pattern. The theme here is consistency. You want it to be as consistent as you can through all of your different branding. So let's check out a quick example of why this matters. So I'm going to pick on myself for this example. And while this isn't exactly what it looked like back in 2019, especially between Twitter design tweaks and such, it captures the gist. While there's nothing necessarily wrong with this, let's compare this to some of my other profiles. My LinkedIn looked a little bit different. I was using a different profile photo. I thought it looked a little bit more professional, even if the banner image didn't necessarily scream professional in itself, but there's nothing necessarily wrong with this. And finally, my GitHub. I like to use Darkwing Duck as my avatar. I thought it was fun to have him represent my hacker profiles. And when I say hacker, I absolutely mean my code projects on GitHub. Nothing nefarious. But again, there's nothing inherently wrong with this. You might be already getting a sense of what I'm kind of getting at here. While there's nothing wrong with any of those individually, when you look at them all together, they're extremely inconsistent. I'm using different profile pictures across all my different profiles. I have a different banner where I can actually just use one. While you can see where I work on for each one of them, they all look slightly different. While I'm confident someone could still probably make who I am between all my profiles, how about when that applies to a conference website using my photo? They use my name on there. They even use my LinkedIn photo. But I was talking about code. So when they go to look me up on GitHub, they have to actually start to dig around to figure out if I'm the same person from the talk. While I'm personally the only Colby Fayock in the world, someone else with this kind of inconsistency might not be the only person in the world. And by not using the same branding, I'm making it challenging for people to quickly and easily recognize me. Now, let's fast forward this to today. As you saw on the Hashnode Bootcamp website, I'm using the same yellow picture of me hugging Star Wars toys. You even saw it earlier in the slides. I even have a nice banner with my space jellyfish friend Cosmo. Heading over to LinkedIn, while arguably this isn't the most professional job-seeking picture in the world, we work in tech, and I would argue that consistency is much more important. It's not necessary to have a big picture of us in full business attire. And instead, someone can see my LinkedIn and easily associate me with all my other public work. And the same goes for GitHub. If you were looking around for my code work and you would stumble upon this, you would instantly know without even reading the pages that it's me. You see my bright yellow image and Cosmo waving at you. And again, looking at these all together, we have a much different picture than what we had before. If you go to any of my public-facing profiles, you know it's me. When you look at the Hashnode website, along with all the other amazing speakers, if you're already familiar with my work, you can easily see that it's me. If you're not familiar with my work, you can see that bright yellow background, you can see my warm Star Wars cuddle, and if you do a quick search of my name, you're easily going to be able to identify my different profiles. So what about my profiles actually scream consistency? And I know this might be obvious to some of you, but let's just touch on it quick and break it. Arguably, the most important thing here is the profile picture. I use the same image across all platforms. That's typically the biggest image on your page. It's also important to use an image that speaks to you personally, clearly shows who you are. While I love my wife dearly, using a picture like this isn't really doing a lot for me. First of all, which one is me? The name Colby can apply to different genders. It's also hard to see me. I personally think I look a little bit better in sunglasses, but again, it makes it hard for people to know who I am. Harder to recognize me if I'm giving a talk in person and if somebody wants to recognize me. But I really like that this one, it still shows a little bit of personality, but it doesn't show a ton. I'd like to think that my current profile picture with the Star Wars cuddle kind of shows that I'm a bit geeky and that I have a fun personality. I also have a consistent banner image. You definitely don't need to have a space jellyfish logo like me. I just had fun getting it made. But especially with the logos in there, with JS and React, people can see that and recognize that everywhere. So they know what I'm about. If I instead were to use my Futurama or Jellyfish banners, yeah, that definitely shows some personality. But in my example before, they weren't consistent. If I at least use the same one across all my different profiles, it would be helping me out for that consistency. Especially opposed to not having a banner at all or using a random image. That ends up being poorly cropped on some devices, and even with the Mickey ears in there, I don't think my forehead is too flattering. It even looks like the alien agrees in the background there. And as far as metadata goes, it's good to strike a balance. Each platform has a little bit different of a voice. I personally wouldn't include all this stuff on my LinkedIn profile, but I'd like to stay consistent with my name and the little blurb at the top. A lot of my content revolves around React and the static web, kind of like you see in the banner. So by using that as my sort of tagline all over, it reinforces that. It helps get that in people's head. So what does Colby do? Well, he does a bunch of React tutorials and talks about static apps, or the Jamstack, as some of you might have heard before. Now, I'm not telling you to get rid of all of your personality from your profile. That's absolutely the opposite. Be yourself and let that shine. Part of developing your personal brand is about expressing yourself. Just try to be consistent about it. And that includes consistency everywhere that you're working publicly, like right here on Hashnode, where they give you a lot of options to customize your profile. Or if you're contributing content to another publication or website. While some might not be able to find me directly through my Twitter if they don't know who I am, maybe they'll see me on one of these other websites like Egghead. And maybe the next time they see my tweet pop up on their timeline, they'll recognize me from before. So how is having a personal brand actually going to help you out? What kind of differences is it actually going to make? There's a lot of different ways that it can provide value. Some things we won't touch on today, but I came up with a few points that I thought were important. And I somehow ended up creating an acronym out of it. Everybody say it with me. ACE. Absolutely kidding. I'm not trying to make that stick. But let's start off with authority. I swear I don't keep using Angie as an example because she's my boss, but beyond her love for air fryers, Angie has become incredibly well known for her work with Java. She literally was named a Java champion. If you're not familiar, it's a title that comes directly from the makers of Java themselves, Oracle, which they don't just give out to anybody. It represents all of the work that she's put into learning Java, her commitment to teaching it, and how she's able to effectively use it in the field. Even before being named a champion, because of all of her advocacy and groundwork with Java tooling, she built authority in the Java community. People trust that she knows what she's talking about and look up to her inspiration and as a resource. This led to her becoming a principal developer advocate at Applitools, where she started Test Automation University, a completely free platform for testing automation courses, and where one of her first courses was an intro to Java. Your brand doesn't need to be tied to one specific type of technology or even one specific community. It can traverse multiple communities where that influence can help lift people up in different ways. Scott Hanselman is known for being an amazing speaker, content creator, and member of the tech community. He's been building content that helps lift people up for nearly 2 decades. That's almost 20 years. Before we get into the community part, let's look at the consistency. I was a bit curious, so out of curiosity, I tried to find his first post. And after 753 pages, trying to update the URL and find the very last one, I found a pretty classic first post. He goes, "Sigh, I'm blogging. We'll see how long this lasts." Well, it lasted almost 20 years so far, and it's been making a big difference in people's lives. His work also includes speaking internationally, where not only does he use his voice to help others learn how to code, but he uses his influence to recognize and use his privilege, to try to shine light onto the social injustice in our communities in the world. Through all this content, he's grown to be known as the Dev to Rogers because he's constantly putting out content to help others, like the struggle that we all know is super real, imposter syndrome. Deep empathy is a part of who he is and part of what he tries to teach others. It's what helped him lead to work full-time with the community at Microsoft, where he was able to maximize his impact. And when we want to learn something, we want to make sure that the person that we're learning from actually knows what they're talking about. And that's where expertise comes in. Josh, who is undoubtedly the king of whimsy, is known for his ability to create magic in a browser. like his heart counter that he includes on his blog posts. Not only is he tracking how many likes each post gets, but as you click the heart more and more, it fills the heart, and then it finally cheers with confetti once you hit the max. It's the little things that can make a difference in a website's experience. And not only is he good at building those whimsical things, he's great at explaining those concepts. Like here, where similar to the heart, a static image doesn't really do it justice. But in Play shows an animation which helps visualize timing functions. And if you haven't used timing functions before, it can be really a bear to wrap your head around. But by using web tech like animations to his advantage, he's able to help people comprehend what's actually happening. He was able to build upon this expertise in both creating and teaching. He was able to leave his full-time job and dedicate that time to building a course that helps others learn in comprehensive ways. He's only launched pre-registration, which is meant as like a beta to kind of help test out his new platform, but it's been really successful even beyond his own expectations. He ended up selling more than $1 million worth of his course. That's insane. That's in 1 week. People trust Josh's expertise. His reputation precedes him, where people know that if you want to learn something like this, he's exactly the person to learn from. So the goal here isn't to tell you that you can all go out there and make $500,000. Maybe you can, but building a brand around a particular expertise has helped Josh lead to tremendous success. And it goes to show just how important that can be. But what all three of these people were able to do, and what they all have in common, is they were ultimately building value. They were each able to take what makes them unique. They took things that they were passionate about, developed content and value around it, and stayed consistent with it. It helped all of them get to where they are today. And if those three amazing people weren't enough, here are just a few more that you can use for inspiration. Where Paris started with a hashtag, Black Tech Twitter, that idea grew more than a hashtag and into a community. She took that idea and expanded on it, where she created Black Tech Pipeline, which is dedicated to helping marginalized communities break into tech. And I'm not just highlighting Alex here because he's my friend, but he started building a community around a simple idea, horse puns. And it all started off with a .horse top-level domain name. And with a newsletter about creative developers, it grew from there. But people, his newsletter. Josh from earlier even has raved about it. But he built an atmosphere around his newsletter and streams for devs to be creative and have fun. And this led him to recently snag a developer advocate position at Prismic. Taylor Alexis wasn't happy with her career trajectory. She dropped out of college because of a lack of passion. And even after trying to learn how to code for the first time, she just wasn't interested in it and gave up. After some devastating personal events, she took another shot, this time pledging to finish out the 100 Days of Code challenge on Twitter. After a long journey, she's now working full-time as a software developer, where she uses her story to help motivate others to do the same. Allie's bio on her homepage starts off with she loves teaching people to code, and that's what she's been doing for a while now. She was teaching at General Assembly as a distinguished and a lead faculty member, not to mention constantly putting out content wherever she can. She poured that passion into her work, where it's led to her building a reputation for being a phenomenal teacher. And that eventually helped her land a role as senior developer advocate for AWS. So none of these people we talked about today started with a bajillion followers as they have now. They all started with the same kind of Twitter account that you and I have today. But they each leveraged their passion and makes them unique, ultimately trying to build value in some way, whether that was by teaching others or just trying to create a space for people to have fun. Everyone starts somewhere. Like me, I'm not some crazy big star, but I started off giving my first meetup talk at my own meetup talking about Gatsby. It wasn't the biggest thing ever, but it gave me a little bit of experience giving a talk. I then started talking about my mapping work at a local conference. And now, over the last few years, I've given a bunch of different talks, including this one. It's helped me to build my personal and increase the impact that I can have with the value that I'm providing. But part of what has been driving me is sticking with it and being consistent. But for me, one big issue is consistency is not easy. And I seriously have a hard time remembering what to tweet. So we're developers. I put on my developer hat and I took advantage of the awesome power of GitHub Actions, where I run a daily cron that simply sends me an email with something to tweet about. It's simple, but it gets the job done. It helps me keep consistent with sharing my work. And I also struggle with having to rewrite my CFPs and bios all the time for talks, like this one today. Simply trying to remember where I saved that Colby hug photo can be a struggle. So I created a set of CFP templates that I save all of my CFPs and my bios in. I actually launched it for others to download. It can help you and get organized and develop your proposals, and maintaining that consistency and brand recognition, helping your chances of getting a talk accepted. And finally, another example is Rich Haynes. He wasn't happy with having to manage his own personal brand across all the different social sites. So he created a project called DevPack, which allows you to upload your images once and update your profiles in one shot. It's available to use, but it's still in alpha. But it will be a great tool for managing your online presence. The point is, though, through all these different solutions, there is My Action, this templates, or DevPack, is we can use the things that we're good at to help keep ourselves on track for that consistency and ultimately help keep up with our personal brand. So your task will be to take all of this and go build some value. Start off by taking a look at your different social profiles. Make sure that you're using the same avatar on Twitter as you are on Hashnode. But think about what value you're providing. Are you trying to help others to code? Are you just writing about your journey? What are you trying to specialize in? Or are you trying to help people find jobs? But once you've identified that, go write a post about it on Hashnode. Talk about how you see your brand. Talk about your goals and how you want to incorporate that into your profile. If you're stuck, talk about why you're stuck. Sometimes simply writing down that will help you think better, kind of like the rubber ducky effect. But either way, try to find that value and stay consistent. And you have until Monday for this particular task. Now, make sure you all go out and buy some Space Jelly t-shirts. Kidding? I'm absolutely kidding. But thank you. If you have any questions or want to talk, feel free to ask the questions. You can find me anywhere at Colby Fayock, and I'll also tweet out a link and include it in the chat for all the different things that you've seen here.
That was really amazing. Like, it's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm not saying this because, I want you to be happy, but this is definitely one of the best talks I've heard. It's definitely straight to the point and what's the word? Inspired. I like it. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, we have a couple of questions and we're going to run through that now. So I'll ask you the question and then you respond.
Sounds great.
And this is just like call us everyone. If you have any question you want to ask, click on the the questions icon at the bottom left corner of your screen and type in the questions and we'll address them as soon as we can. All right, so the first question is, what does CFP stand for?
Call for proposals. So typically events, they'll open up a call for proposals where like JavaScript conferences and such, where they'll allow pretty much anyone to submit a proposal for a different talk. So whether it's like this one, stand out by building a personal brand, or some of my other talks, it basically is a form that you fill out that you send the information about the talk for a group of people to consider it for their event. Amazing.
Next question is, in order to keep consistency imaginary, do you use Gravatar or any other service, or do you just change it everywhere?
Gravatar is interesting. It's great where you can use it, but Gravatar isn't supported everywhere. So that makes it hard because I don't think a lot of the like mainstream social profiles use it, if I'm not mistaken. So, for where Gravatar is supported, absolutely, it's a great choice to be able to easily update that. But it's just a matter of it being supported.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, cool. Next question. I have a famous name that isn't famous because of me, okay? Which makes it hard to make accounts under my own name. Any thoughts on how to handle this?
Yeah, that's a good question. Completely opposite of my name uniqueness, but I don't really have great off the top of my head, but I know some people will use their middle initial. So if your middle initial is unique, maybe you can use that as part of your name branding and your social profile names. Sometimes other people just start going by a completely different thing. Like I have Space Jet. It's not really like what I go by, but people kind of know me of that. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, so just to speak to that, so you're saying it's good to, so let's say for instance, now my name is Edidiong, right? And it's like a local name to my community. So it can be hard for people to pronounce, right? So do I stick with that name and ensure people pronounce it, or choose something simple that would stick faster to other people?
That's another good question. Now, personally, I believe in people sticking to their names and trying to help people into the pronunciation of it. I know that's not always easy. People. I like to think my name's simple, but sometimes like people definitely mispronounce it pretty wildly. So it's definitely a struggle, but I do fully support people using their full names if they're comfortable still doing that.
Okay, that means I'll continue sticking with my name. Someday we'll know how to pronounce it. All right, cool. The next question. Can I make consistency without a photo with my face, like a logo, for instance?
Absolutely. Like I was saying before, for my GitHub profiles and stuff, I was using Darkwing Duck. You could use, some kind of character like that. Now that might eventually lead to copyright infringement stuff, but you can even go on Fiverr and have somebody create a little character for you for like $5. But there's a lot of different options that you can do. And as long as you're still using that same image everywhere very consistently, it's going to resonate with people when they think about your name and that brand.
All right, sense. All right, next question. Would you tell us about the scenario where tools that, okay, let me try to rephrase it. Would you tell us about the scenario where the tools that you've built have provided value to you?
To me personally? So that content reminder one was one of those tools where I use GitHub Actions to send me daily tweets. And I'm telling you, I'm horrible at remembering to tweet on Twitter and stuff. I feel like I've gotten better at it, but I literally get 2 emails a day that give me 2 ideas for what to tweet about, because otherwise I will completely forget about my content. So that alone, as a developer, we can do those types of things. And that alone has helped me keep up and be consistent with sharing my old content.
That makes sense. So do you think of the content you wanted to say beforehand and then add it to the GitHub action so it automatically reminds you when it's time?
A little bit of both. So I took advantage of RSS feeds. So my YouTube account, or just really anything that I have a RSS feed. The way that it works, getting into the technical bits, is I have a few different sources, and one of those sources are just manually putting in the URLs, kind of like what you were getting at. But it takes all those sources and it just gives me a random one each time. So it tries to randomize it, so I'm not doing just cookie cutter stuff every time. And I specifically don't have it automatically tweet, because I want to make sure that I'm still kind of writing the message and making it look like it came from me and not a robot.
Oh, okay, that's cool. All right, next question. Can you elaborate more on the tax? I just want to understand the tax a lot more.
On the what?
On the tax you shared.
The task. Okay. Sure. So I think kind of the goal is to help you start getting to think about what exactly is the value that you're trying to bring. And not everybody has to have some groundbreaking value that they're trying to bring, but that value is as simple as sharing your stories. So for the task, try to think about what you're bringing, whether it is sharing your journey, and just write about it. If you can't think of anything, the idea is just get into the editor and start writing, because sometimes just get that first paragraph will help you think about the things a little bit differently and help you come up with ideas of what you want it to be. But take that idea and talk about what you imagine your goals and your future for your content looking like, and tell everybody about it.
Interesting. All right, next question is about consistency. What is your opinion about URLs across all social media, all social networks?
That's a great point, and I should have included that in my talk, actually. I think that all of your social profiles, you should strive to have the same exact URL on every profile. Again, for me, it's easy because at Colby Fayock, I'm at Colby Fayock everywhere. So that was easy for me to grab. So it's not as easy for everybody, unfortunately, but I think having that consistency, even if you have to do something a little bit creative with the name, is important, because that way people immediately know where to go to expect. If they know you on Twitter as at whatever, they will know that they can go find you at the same thing on Hashnode or anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. I totally agree with you. All right, so we'll take 2 more questions because we're already running out of time. So just take 2 more questions, and So the next question is, I have a tendency to incorporate humor in my technical articles. Would you consider a good idea, or maybe does it distract the reader?
I think it's a great idea as long as you're not making the content about the humor. So if that humor is helping people kind of relax and understand things a little bit more, I think that's absolutely a great idea. It makes learning fun for people. But if it gets to a point where it just becomes a distraction because you're relying too heavily on pushing those jokes, it sometimes might be a little bit, it might become a little bit distracting for people who want to go there to actually learn.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So the next question and final question is actually a really interesting one. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So the question is, do you think that a topic can be saturated? For instance, like, is there a room for me to still make a name for myself in the React space, or do something like KCD does, or has he already locked it down?
I think there's definitely saturation in different topics. However, I don't think that means that not everybody can go out and try to do something. The interesting thing about us as humans is we all have like our unique ways of writing about things or trying to teach things. So being able to take that and trying to teach somebody in your voice, that's something that I actually had to get over myself. And one of my old coworkers helped me do that, because I was kind of looking online, like, who am I to go out and teach this thing when there's all these other great people like Kent teaching React? But he kind of helps me realize that maybe somebody would learn a little bit differently from the way that I teach it. So that's what kind of pushed me to start writing more. And people seem to like the way that I teach things, and the exact same thing can apply to you if you're trying to go out there. Like, I think another example is Will Johnson posted a photo of a grocery store where it has, like, if you imagine in a grocery store, there's like 100 bottles of water of completely different brands, but they're all water, so like you can go out and do your thing and try to teach it. And I think I definitely support people trying to teach what they feel passionate about. Yeah,
I totally resonate with what you're saying. It's absolutely important to remember there's someone that will understand the way you teach and not understand the way Kent teaches. I mean, no stuff or anything, but it's absolutely true. So I'll totally recommend that you go ahead and still share the content you want to share.
And I think just a thing I thought about on top of that, like, I think there's also a difference in somebody who's an expert at React as opposed to somebody who's learning React from the first time. Because somebody who's completely brand new to React and they're trying to teach it as they're learning it are coming at it from a very different perspective, and that helps somebody else learn it that way. Yeah,
I totally agree. That makes a lot of sense. All right, thank you so much for joining the session, Colby. It was absolutely fantastic and really amazing. I personally learned a lot. I bet everyone learned a lot as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for having me. I'm going to post the link to the notes again, just so in case you want to see any of those links. But yeah, thank you everybody for checking it out, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right, cool. Just before Catalin jumps in, just want to mention again that Hashnode is a free content creation platform for developers to blog. So feel free to create a blog on Hashnode and use it consistently to create your blog, write technical articles, create customized for your YouTube channel, and build a personal brand like Colby has recommended in this talk. Thank you. All right, Catalin, you can go up next if you can hear me. All right, cool. So let me just end. I think Catalin is having a bit of internet issues and stuff. All right, thank you everyone for joining today's session. Feel free to share what you've learned on social media and tag Colby and Hashnode as well. Like, you could add pointers to the most interesting thing and also work on the tags as well. Thank you so much. Do have a nice day. Bye.